As I'm going through the workshop, I'm sure some of you are keyed in and listening or reading blogs, listening to podcasts who are talking about the war on reading within reading right now. Some of our biggest names are having to rethink what they've shared on national stages about how children learn to read. But the one thing that hasn't changed, and I'm so thankful, is that the Science I'm reading still talks about Scarborough's model that's been around for a long time, that reading is not just decoding and comprehension equals reading. There's a whole lot of things that go into that ability to decode and then to comprehend.
Hello everyone, welcome to Advancing Guided Reading Levels and Skills using ESGI, presented by Donna Whyte.
Good evening. I'm coming to you from New York, so it's dark and a lot of snow on the ground. So for you people that said sunny and nice weather, I'm a little jealous. I am thrilled to be presenting this workshop today. It has been many years in the coming to figure out how to help teachers to work smarter, not harder, when it came to assessing and progress monitoring reading levels and the skills that we need to keep moving kids through them. So my promo code, ESGI promo code, if you do not have an account, and at the end will want an account so that you can download, you can go and get the tabs that I'm making available to everyone, is the Smarty Zone. So keep in mind the Smarty Zone if you do sign up for an ESGI account, either today or whenever you take a peek at it. So let's take, if you've met me before, you've probably heard this before. If you've never met me, I tell everyone on the road I have 3 jobs. I'm a mom. I've raised 2 children of my own. They're all grown and much past being in school. I'm a teacher. I'm certified in New York State, pre-K through 8. I've taught all of those grades and been now with high schoolers across the United States as a consultant. For years, some of you may have even met me on a national stage where I would present for International Literacy Association or state reading conferences, ASCD, the National DI conference out in Vegas. But I've really pulled back on my stage presence in an attempt to embed myself in districts with the hope of making a difference for large school districts who have a significant number of students who struggle in reading. So I started in Illinois. I am now in Ohio. I have a district in California, and I just met with the next district I'll be taking on, and that's in Nevada. So let's take a peek at kind of what's going on. I kind of use these as my way to talk about what we're living through. So I'm an eternal optimist. Anyone that knows me knows I see the bright side of most things. I really believe that good things come from good people and that having a positive outlook is so important. So if I asked you to describe the first glass, how might you describe that? And a lot of people, of course, say full. If I say, look at the second glass, most people will either say half full or half empty. But if I asked you to look at the last glass, how would you see that glass? An eternal optimist might see it differently than you do, because I definitely see that glass as an opportunity to make a margarita. I don't see it as an empty glass, but I want to be totally honest with you. Having stayed home for a year, working in my office virtually after almost 20 years, traveling up to 180 days a year, that when I return to schools, things are tough right now. And I have to be honest, I really believe that sometimes the glass is even broken for some of you. So please know, as we start this webinar, that one of my goals as a consultant has always been to figure out why, when teachers are working so hard, are they not getting back the same payoff in terms of seeing kids grow. So I'd like to say to you, just thank you. Thank you for being here, giving up more of your precious, valuable time, but more importantly, thank you for giving your lives to children. We are changing the future. I just know it. So if I asked you what low means to you, because as I travel the country, people always want to say to me, well, my kids are really low, Donna. And I used to think I didn't really know what that meant. I would think of words like, well, they mean they're struggling, they mean they're behind their classmates, maybe they mean they're environmentally deprived, they do poorly, they're a non-reader. But low doesn't really quantify and help me to move kids forward. Because we really don't know what makes them low. And so when I would sometimes say to districts I was working with, well, when you say low, what do you mean? Well, they can't read. Well, what do you mean they can't read? Well, they can't read. Do you mean they don't read on grade level? They're significantly below grade level, or they don't read any words? Well, they can't read what we're giving them at this grade. Okay, but we still don't know which of those things is true. And so then I would dive in and say, well, do you think it's a comprehension problem? Do you think it's a decoding issue? I don't know. They can't read. So keep in mind that I truly believe that if we could quantify what we mean by low, that life would be much easier for teachers. And that's where ESGI came into this. So as I'm going through the workshop, I'm sure some of you are keyed in and listening or reading blogs, listening to podcasts who are talking about the war on reading within reading right now. Some of our biggest names are having to rethink what they've shared on national stages about how children learn to read. But the one thing that hasn't changed, and I'm so thankful, is that the Science on Reading still talks about Scarborough's model. That's been around for a long time, that reading is not just decoding and comprehension equals reading. There's a whole lot of things that go into that ability to decode and then to comprehend. So I'm thrilled to see that Scarborough's work is coming back front and center, because he is somebody I've been quoting for over 15 years. When I think of the science of reading and what it's going to mean to the future, please know that I'm constantly listening, researching, talking to the best in the field to find out what could we change. And as I move forward in my thought processes in the next couple of years, I know that how I bring my resources to people will also change. So think of something like Fluent. We now know that fluency has been abused in the United States at many levels, that for a very long time, we've considered a fluent reader the rate at which they read. And so that's what you see when you look at tables. Well, how many words per minute do they read? But depending on which researcher you look at, and I'm a big fan of Tim Rosinski, but I'm a big fan of Hasbrook and Tyndall. And so when I look at the numbers, right now, if I put in a bunch of different researchers, a child in first grade that reads between 23 and 90 words is considered fluent. Well, we put a lot of money and time into figuring out how many words, and are we assessing it or teaching it? So I always look back on this paragraph because I think this first grader taught me a lot. For a first grader to be reading at a level P, first of all, I need you to know that that level of reading is really considered end of third grade. And this is a first grader. So when I look at this, I think, okay, the teachers say to me that have her in first grade, she is so gifted and talented, Donna, and we just want you to assess her. I do a running record on her. She missed one word, and it was only because she didn't know that OW in the middle of growled, how it had changed. I was circling words as she was reading. She had no problem decoding those words, but when I went back and asked her what they meant, she was only able to tell me the word conversation meant to talk. All the rest, she got incorrect. We have to be really careful as we move forward in reading to understand there's a big difference between kids who can word chuck and kids who are comprehensive readers. And so we're looking for both of those things to come together. Fluency, well, you'll see in the corner that little tiny, bunny and the turtle that say rate. Keep in mind that fluency is actually 7 pieces, and we have to be looking at all of those as we move readers from struggling into proficient. Definitely from my sense, I often worry that we teach sight words too much in isolation. The science of reading is teaching us a lot about what we thought we knew about what a sight word is versus a high frequency word. These are in fact high frequency words, not sight words. Sight words can vary between kids. If I call my mom, mom, then that may be a sight word to me. If you call your mom, mother, that might be a sight word to use. So sight words don't actually stay the same per student, but high frequency words do, and how we practice them truly has to change. So look for in the future that I will be looking at that research and also building a tab for fluency as I move forward. Now, let's take a peek. When you think of the levels of readers within guided reading, pretty much, and I use Fontaines and Pinnell's letters, but you might be using someone else's, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. You might be looking at a Lexile score, or you could be looking at easy CBA data, or you're looking at DIBELS or DRA, and so keep in mind that these are all converted in different charts. But in this particular case, I'm using in this school district, Fontaines and Pinnell's A through Z. We know that basically we want a kindergartner to be somewhere between A and C. We hope for C by the end of the year, but we're also living in a pandemic, so we want to be realist also. Then in first grade, you first grade teachers, you carry the burden. I mean, we're looking for 7-level growth, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. And to send you off to second grade with a pretty good step into that J level. You are learning to read. And then we know by the time we get you to that N level, there are no more word strategies, that now we've become more about the vocabulary and the keys to comprehension. So how we progress monitor these things becomes imperative to moving through the levels. I am the author of the Reading Aptitude Continuum Ladders, talking about if a child is missing a couple of rungs, that's where we need to teach. And that's where ESGI saved my life, because it allowed me to show teachers that I work with in all of the districts that I consult with when to stop assessing and to start teaching. So let's look at what an ESGI account in one of my districts looks like right now. We have a where to start button. Now for anyone in guided reading, you want to, if you're have a brand new class in first grade or mid kindergarten, or and you want to get an assessment on these kindergartners and find out if any of them are yet decoding, or you have second grade, you want to get a roundabout. You don't want to sit with running records and try an A and, oh, that's easy. B, oh, that was easy. Let me jump to D. Too easy. It might be. You always start with some kind of format that gives you a roundabout level to begin on, and you can move up or down from that particular estimation. So this is definitely, anytime you use where to start running records, realize that you're just getting an approximation, an estimation of what level that child truly is. We don't know unless we actually do a running record. But where to start tests have been developed by Fontaines and Pinnell. They've been developed by San Diego Reading. There's probably one if you own a book series in Wonders or any of the major publishers. The truth was, the one I developed for here had to be original because there's copyright laws. And so I was very careful about making sure I created one, time tested it, brought it to 5 different districts for over a year and a half. And I know that we get a very good result in being close to what is the approximate reading level of a child. So anyone that's used them, you know that you're reading words that come on a list. So you might be reading the early words. If you get 16 or more, you're allowed to go on to the next list. If not, then you stop at that list, you reconvert and say, okay, he only got 11 on early reading list. That makes him about an A level reader. So you're using a conversion chart to look through these different lists. Now, if you look at the list, you can begin to understand how it predicts where you are reading and your level by just using words. And that is because the first one most of the words are either sight words or decodable. I mean, the early word list, all sight words. Then we get on and we're looking at early decodable, a couple of long vowels like make and dime, but for the most part, sight words again. Then you step up and now you have to know some of the rules. You have to know blends. You might need a digraph to get through these. Then we step up and say, okay, what are the exceptions to rules? The KN has a silent K, or giant saying that hard sound. And then list 4 really tells us how you attack multi-syllable words. So then we get an approximation. Now, this is what I used to use before ESGI, fell into my world. And that was, I would sit there checking off which words they knew, counting them up, converting them. And now, instead of doing that, I simply have a tab that allows me to do early reading words. You get 16 or more, I go to list 1. You get 16 or more, I go to list 2. If you don't, I stop there and I convert it. And on the screen in the tab for the different tests, it always has a conversion chart. So that test intro page is there for you to look back and say, okay, he got 8 out of the 20 on early reading list. He's about an A, or in this case, an A. So those are there. So if you slide over to where my red is now, you will see that there's a tab for actually putting in the reading level. I was a little weary about putting reading levels in here. I wanted kids and parents to be able to see growth. And I'm excited to say that at a board meeting 2 weeks ago, parents actually were sharing that on social media. They now better understand what reading level their child is and what reading level we're trying to achieve as that next step. And so it was really kind of neat that we did end up putting this into ESGI. It was a little hard because you're converting the letters of Fonson Pinnell to numbers. But in the end, when you pull that report, you look and say, okay, he was a 1, so I know that's an A. He's now a 10. I know that's a J because I'm used to working with this now. And so what was neat was to see that these are slow moving lines, because you're not talking about that substantial growth you're going to see with like learning letters. You are moving reading levels. So when you see movement of the line in this section, it's pretty huge for teachers, and it's been a neat addition to keeping track of our guided reading groups. So teachers utilize the reading passages, whatever you use, to assess exact reading levels. In our case, and again, I'm going to remind you that you might want to correlate or look and say, I need a correlation chart. If you look at the bottom of the screen, just quickly today, I typed into Google guided reading correlation chart so that I could find like Fonson Pinnell compared to DRA, compared to quarterly benchmarks. And there were tons that came up. You can see just a number in the bottom of how many charts are available. You can always find whatever you have as data and convert it. But don't forget, in the end, you need a book. You need a book that says this is a level L. And when I do a running record on it, I want to ensure that a child can read 90% of these words in this book so that they have comprehension ability. And if they can't, it's frustrating. And if they're not making any errors, it may just be too easy for them. So we're now able to put that into our little tab on ESGI and able to pull them as class totals. The principals and I will pull them to look what has been the movement. There are times when we're looking these days and saying, come on, a child was a B coming into first grade and now you're telling me he's almost at a J, which would be the end of the year? That's not possible. And we go back and we start to look at the data and realize it just clicked for this child. Whereas other times the disappointment is that the child came in at an A and continues to be an A. Well, we're doing something wrong. I hear a lot, well, they're not coming to school. Well, I know I looked at attendance on a child. He missed 23 days, but what did we do with him the other 77 that we had him? And so I still always hope and pray that we're taking the time to use what we see here to drive how we group kids and how we introduce skills. But definitely you'll want that actual running record that comes from reading text. Next, teachers utilize those reading passages. They have it in there now. And once that reading level is established, teachers can begin to look at common errors and identify teaching points to ensure that students meet our reading targets. Now, you could say, well, those aren't our reading targets. Keep in mind, every district is different right now. I have 2 districts that were literally out of school for 1 full year due to living conditions where the districts happen to be. So we have you set those quarterly based upon what we're kind of living in this day and age, but you could also set them according to the chart that you pull, a conversion chart. So then say that you were looking at the data, and this is Allie Alligator's group, and we look at the phonics progress monitoring, and we find out that, wow, this little group of 4 kids is moving right along. I'm really happy to see 4 out of 4 can do these things. I pull their history. I look and say that the teacher has done a good job filling in the gaps since the beginning of the year. This is a 1st grade, but they had 100% in CBC words. We lost a child when we got to actually transferring those words. He got 100% of reading them in isolation, but once we translated them to real reading, he was not able to blend in the same way that he could do in isolation. Okay, but that's only 1. And so this teacher was correct in saying, I'm going to try that next test, because I keep my tests on a continuum. When kids start to fall off, it's time to stop testing. And so you can see that this teacher actually did go on to that next box with at least 1 child and found out that child could not do any CBCC, which would be next. So we know that child's kind of stuck at the CD level by looking at the data. And to get him more into that EF range, we're definitely going to have to start teaching and applying those blends. When we look at LE Elephants, that's the same classroom of 1st graders. They don't need exactly the same thing. In fact, we have a few of the children that are still missing some of the sounds. So you can look at production of sounds, and when I group them, I can see, well, wow, this teacher's doing a great job, because at this point, for the reading level where these students are, I wouldn't expect them to have great mastery of long vowels. And sure enough, I look down, I pulled the data, and it basically, they're missing long vowels. So overall, I'm thrilled with where this group is going. They can then, for 83% of the time, they can take those production of letter sounds and turn them into blending CBC. But they fall off the minute we get to that next one that says put the CBC words in text. And that's the application of reading. So ESGI really allows us, with a touch of a button, to begin to really analyze what our groups are able to do. An example, this teacher identified production of letter sounds as a problem area. This is a kindergarten teacher in the state of California. The student recognized and could identify sounds, but were unable to produce them. If you can hear the sounds, that is a skill, but it's auditory. To read, I have to reproduce and be able to use speech to hear those sounds either in my head or out loud. So the production of sounds was a problem. She targeted the missing sounds, progress monitored, and was able to significantly increase sound production in a short period of time, because we are looking at December, which gives us, and mine is being covered up by a box here, but I know that you can see we are up above the 20, keeping in mind, take away 6 for the long vowels, because that's not where these kids are. We just need those 26. And if, P is, or if Q is missing, I'm not really worried about it. So we're really able to hone in on what would move this child on the quickest path to being literate and being able to read. Teachers can track, any of you that already use ESGI and use that, and people that don't, the neatest things are just to hit some of the charts and things for reporting the individual data or groups of student data or your classroom data. And nothing makes me celebrate more than when a teacher says to me, I say, well, let's look at Jacob's production of sounds. And I find out beginning of the year, he knew 2. He then, the first time he was progress monitoring, he knew almost half. And now in our second progress monitoring of the year in December, he was up to 21. I cannot ask any more of this teacher than what she has given us. She has the line showing me growth. Now, granted, you all know that we are in difficult times, and there are times when the lines aren't so straight up. But any growth for us and the superintendents that I'm working with throughout the United States is showing us, hey, the teacher is doing the best she can. We can show, if we wait for these summative assessments to come in at the end of the year, we're so disappointed. Whereas I can look throughout the year as we progress monitor on ESGI and say, I just need to intervene right now in a specific area, and I can see that line grow. And we can show those growth targets that we want so desperately for our teachers to be able to see, so that they know, hey, I am doing the right thing. I am moving in the right direction. So the charts are probably part of my favorite in all of this. Now we're over to, so where to start. Then we did reading levels, over to the phonics progress monitoring, and we're going to look at that again in a minute because that is a very big tab. There are a lot of skills that go in, from all the way from, can I blend? Do I recognize letters? Do I know the sounds? Blending, all the way down to prefixes, suffixes, and the 6 types of syllables when you're working with a struggling reader at different grade levels. I work with middle schoolers who are still reading, at a second grade level. I have to diagnose what is keeping them from moving into those higher levels of reading. So right now we look at sight words. This particular school uses Fries. Of course, if you don't use Fries, you would want to create your own tab and put whatever ones you do use in there. I'm happy to say the science of reading is following Fries, just changing the way we look at high frequency words. So I know that I'm going to be changing the tab to read Fries high frequency words, because we now have to be very distinct in the differences. But if you look at Fries, we know that 100 words make up 50% of what you read and write each day when you're in school. When I would look and see that teachers would teach the first 10 and kids would get 2 out of 10 and we'd move on to the second 10. It didn't make sense to me. I started really pressing the teachers to think about progress monitoring high frequency words more frequently, only adding the number that we felt was appropriate for a particular student, and then looking to build on what he did know, instead of saying he didn't know any of them, he didn't know any of the next group we introduced, and we introduced another group, now he doesn't know 30. And instead staying with them in order of, hey, we know these first 10 are the most frequent, so let's stay with them until we get some mastery. And ESGI will show me in the chart, which words do I need to work on when I group the kids, which words do this particular group need, as opposed to what does the whole class need. And some of you, this has always been one of those shake your head moments for me. I watch teachers work their butts off to get this particular student to recognize his high frequency words, only to find out he tested really high. I mean, 100 on the first set of 25, 88% on the second. And then the heartbreak was, I took those exact same sight words and I put them into phrases. They are based upon Dr. Tim Rosinski's work on high frequency phrases. I did modify some of them with Tim's permission, Dr. Rosinski's permission. So I've taken the same words that were in the first 50, put them into phrases, and the child now gets 10%. So this was a way for us to kind of be slapped in the face a little bit that, yeah, were we teaching sight words on the ladder, the high frequency words? Yes. But were we getting them into phrases, and were we moving those phrases into actual skill to be able to read? So that particular tab allows us, and you'll see, I'm thrilled now. Last year, I would see lines that look just like this, because once they were taught, they didn't go back. Now I see my teachers going back, making sure that teachers have that students have mastered these words and not going on and adding 10 more before they have a good substantial base of the beginning ones. And so the lines have been very, very exciting. And I can't wait to share with you at the end what we have found out in the last 2 years. But definitely under the tab, I have tried to divvy them out either in groups of 10 when we're first starting out with the littles, all the way up to groups of 25. I also am very adamant that when you are teaching those high frequency words, that you take the time to stop after a certain number of words and ask, can they read those words in phrases? So within my test, you also see that there is level 1, level 2, level 3 of phrases, so that we can ensure that kids can actually apply the words, not just read them in isolation, which is not a great skill for transfer. So used to be, I'd sit with my little strips and I'd be pulling them out and losing them, and kids would be bending them. And then one kid told me, well, I can read that one because I know that it's ripped. So that means it says this. And now with ESGI, it is simply a matter of pressing a button. I know which ones are being read incorrectly. Most commonly, I can address that. We can look at, are they able to transfer the words that they know into actual phrases? And so that's really been a plus. Whereas my sheet used to look like this one and I was handwriting everything. This takes me back to a school that I started with over 7 years ago, a district where we had a huge amount of struggling kids. And I would look at data and shake my head and wonder why, because you know, if you know 74% or more of your sounds and for production, and you have a base of sight words, I expect you to be an A or B level reader. And yet the K passage, only 3 kids in this classroom were reading it. So now I knew it then, but it wasn't in my face like the ESGI data is. Now I pull a classroom and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they're not reading. When I look at the data on this child at the beginning of the year, and you tell me, you know, I hovered over my little green dot there and it said he was a non-reader, he was a 0, which meant non-reader. And I'm looking at Mason's skills in the phonics progress monitor and I'm saying, something is wrong. There is a disconnect here. The data supports that he should be a student well on his way of being a successful reader right now. I would expect him to at least be a B, not a C or a D. And sure enough, as soon as we started reading the data in ESGI, targeting it, look at this child. He immediately snapped up. He is right on grade level right now. I could not be more excited for the teacher that made that data work for that little boy in her class and for himself. Jenna comes to first grade at a level, you know, B, and now above level at level L. Why? Because every time I visit her teacher's ESGI account, I see that she's progress monitoring. She's moving Jenna to the next testing area. If Jenna falls off, and at the CBC C and CCVC in text, then that's where she stops. If she does well enough, she goes on to the next test. And that's been so exciting to watch the payback. Teachers work hard. There were times when our teachers were working on the wrong things. Now we're working on the right things, and it couldn't be paying off in a bigger way for us. So when I think about the whole progress monitoring, and as I said, you're talking about a lot of skills. I mean, all the skills that are in the progress monitoring tab are in order. I love that when you see that 18 out of 18 kids in this class were tested on identification of letter sounds. They did well enough, 87%, to take them to the next one. We cut it off at 75 to 80%, depending on which school I'm working in. These kids, 18 out of 18, have a good handle on production of letter sounds. Move them on. Let's see if they can blend those letter sounds. Sure enough, they start to fall. And you see that only 15 out of 18 kids made it there. Then you see only 12 out of 18 were pushed into CBC words in text. That means they had to get better than 80% on the test before. I expect to see less kids tested as the numbers start to fall out, because it is all about using ESGI to figure out when do you stop assessing and start teaching in a specific area. That's what this has allowed us to do. Look for an upcoming phonemic awareness tab. I am already building that in one of my districts in response to what we are reading. I was always a phonemic awareness guru, but it wasn't something I was keeping in tabs the way we now know we should be when we look at the science of reading. So we'll be adding that tab as I move forward. Keep in mind, there is no quicker path forward for kids in reading than to know what they can do so we can figure out what to teach them next. I don't own the using level text to teach and support reading strategies, but it's online for free. And you could certainly go and grab it. And I love that it's very specific in saying, these are the word strategies that a level A and B need. They are marked with W's. If they can do this, chances are they can decode some of an A or B level text. So keep that in mind. You know, if you're not an ESGI user, I don't know that any button gets used more in my districts than this one. The teachers love the parent letters. They love to see what the kids have gotten correct. They love to be able to say, hey, dear parent and guardian of Sophia, this is what she knows. This is what was incorrect, things we're still working on. It just seems so individualized for the first time in a long time, where I'm not digging through papers to find out, well, which letters did Sophia miss? Which ones does she know? Can she, you know, which ones can't she blend? Which ones can? And so the program also will generate individual flashcards. My teachers love that. I don't use it, but the teachers I work with love that button that here's Sophia's flashcards, and it prints off just what Sophia needs to practice, not what the entire class needs to practice. So that's a really cool feature within ESGI. And I want to be able to show you and to celebrate some of the teachers who have put their heart and soul into using the data from ESGI to make a change in kids' lives. This is one of my school districts. We have significantly reduced the number of kids who are well below grade level. Now, in a pandemic, we do expect some below, but the well below begin to scare us as we're moving on through the grades. So to be able to crunch that number from beginning of year to mid-year, and to know that we're going to half it again by the end of this year. I know we are, because we did it last year. So I know we can do it again. That I like to see anytime, I don't necessarily always need the blue to grow significantly, although it has here. I am looking for that green and blue though, because once I get those kids over that hump, I know that the teacher can then say, hey, listen, there are less kids that need that individualized instruction that has to go on in small group to get them to move to be at or above level. And so the practice that kids can do independently based on the data has just been remarkable. We've been able to change groups. We've been able to float kids. We're doing power hours in several of my schools where we share children that have similar needs or are excelled. We have many of the high readers together reading novels in first grade that are beyond their years in very high needs districts, a district that is 80% poverty in the United States, and still seeing that we can achieve those results if we target what the students need to be able to move in reading. So this was our first grade. This is our second grade. We were super happy because the end of second grade is kind of that cutoff where we begin to look and say, okay, they have learned to read. Now we're pushing them into third grade, where the challenge is read to learn. Now content is coming at you full speed. And we're no longer spending as much time on decoding words as we are in understanding what the words mean. And so we are thrilled to see that I'm not thrilled to see that we eliminated the average kids, but we pushed some of those below kids into, we gained average kids by pushing some of those below yellow ones into being average or above average. This is almost unheard unheard of data. And I know that ESGI and the people that work there would say, Donna's been holding out on this for like 2 years. And that was because I had to have the data that proved that it would move kids, that we could make a difference that was significant in districts by giving a tool to teachers that allowed them to progress monitor every student in their classroom, not waiting for summative assessments all the time, getting data that could drive what we did tomorrow. And that's what ESGI gave us. Third grade, we're kind of good at moving an average student into being an above average student, but anyone that works in all of the grades of reading knows that it gets harder and harder to get kids on grade level as they push through these major grades. We're happy with the results. We have to do better. I'm glad that 19 went to 10. I know that that below has some of those 19 pushed into it. But we need to be better at bringing up the lowest of our children, no matter what grade level they are. And that's what the data will drive in the next couple of years. And I think one of our biggest accomplishments, and this has been a national fight for me for years as a teacher, and that is that I feel that teachers' hands are tied at times, that we can't get help for kids. And so we yell, test them, refer them, because we don't know how else to get the help that we feel that each of our kids needs. But one of our biggest accomplishments is that we have targeted what they need, and that we've been able to significantly reduce the number of special education referrals within one of our districts. I don't have the exact numbers, but I have my fingers crossed that we're talking, we've reduced them between 20 and 30%. So I'm waiting for the data right now, but I will be really excited if we get over 30, but I know that we're somewhere between 20 and 30% reduction of referrals, because teachers feel like we now know what is holding kids back and we know how to reach them. This ensures that our resources are available for the students who need them most. There are students who need special education resources, but we all know that there have been many who have landed in that system simply because we didn't know how to get them the help they needed to become the readers that we wanted. The top 2 stumbling blocks, and I got to stop talking pretty soon and get some questions, but top 2 stumbling blocks of struggling readers at or above 2nd grade, I should have written there, are long vowel patterns. ESGI allows you to go into the progress monitoring and say, is it the silent E? Is it double vowels? Is it the A patterns that are holding them back? What is holding them back? And to pinpoint it. How many times I've done the assessments for the different vowels and said, listen, guys, it's not as bad as we think. He's missing 1 or 2 that he can't seem to grasp and master how many different ways E can say E. So EY, EE, he needs to learn those, or he's missing E and he's missing U patterns. And so we can target those and then get that child moving in the right direction faster. So long vowel patterns, definitely something to look at within that, because we know any child 2nd grade and above, chances are that could be a major stumbling block. And one of the big ones we see, and I see more than ever as I work with kids who have been pushed through grades and cannot read anywhere near grade level, even in middle school, high school. The second one is actually the 6 types of syllables. So within that phonics assessment screener that I had shown you that we're more than willing to share with you to put in your ESGI account, keep in mind that there are screenings for those vowel patterns, for those types of syllables. These are actually free. I love to share that Make, Take, Teach does an excellent job with these cute little posters and cards that allow us to ensure that we know exactly what the types of syllables are and how we can represent those for the students in our class. But they are on that phonics progress monitoring. So if you have an older struggling student, or you know of someone that does, I can basically take anyone that does not read on grade level and get a great idea using the running records and then the phonics progress monitoring and the high frequency words to get an idea of what is keeping that student from moving on in reading levels. And so it certainly has been an exciting, I never believed that the pandemic would have grown such an exciting opportunity for so many of my schools. It gave me more time at home to really think about how to help the teachers that so many districts had allowed me the privilege of working with. Teachers work hard. We have to be working on the right things. A teacher in California, and I think she'd even let me use her name, but I won't here. But if she's on, she'll know who she is. She said to me, "Where were you 15 or 20 years ago, Donna? Because teaching is easier for me now and so much more rewarding now that I know how to move the kids. I know how to hone in on the data. I know how to use it to change what I do tomorrow. And it's changing the lives of children." And so a couple of weeks ago, when we looked at second grade data in one of my districts, and we were so thrilled to see that we have 4 out of 5 classrooms are at or above grade level right now. And we have one power hour group who has a number of kids close enough that we are going to push hard and get them there by the end of the year. We have 10 or 12 kids in that room that we can't figure out, guys. It is, many of you suffer the same thing. We've looked at attendance, we've looked at, their motivation, and we can't figure out why we're not moving them at the same rate we're able to move others. And then we have kids who have IEPs in that room. So we would expect them to be maybe a wider range of reading levels. But to have 10 or 12 kids that do not have IEPs out of almost 150 kids that we can say, these are now our struggling readers compared to 67% of our children just 3 years ago, is unheard of. And I'm thrilled, and I'm thankful to ESGI for, allowing me to put so much of my work within their software that allows our teachers across the country to progress monitor and really make a difference for kids. When we looked at that second grade data, 2 of our teachers started crying. I started crying with them because, the realization is that if we don't reach them by second or third grade, we have a small chance of reaching struggling readers as we go on, unless we're very intentional in how we're going to reach them. And I know, looking back, I said to many of them, when I see a child that went from a B all the way up to being close to grade level now, you have changed his life. You have changed his education. He now can read, which opens the whole system to him. Kids who in second grade start to fall behind will start to fall behind in math, science, social studies, because things will become dependent upon your ability to decode and comprehend text. And so I look forward to putting more things within my tabs. I know one of my districts tells me we're 3 years in, it's time to put the comprehension and vocabulary on there so that we can do a better job with our academic vocabulary. And I'm excited to see where this is going to take us next. And I'm thrilled that ESGI gave me the opportunity to share this with you tonight. So I did want to leave a few minutes at the end. We have about 11 minutes. If there are thoughts or comments or questions, and Rochelle, if you received any questions that I can answer now, I'd be glad to jump in.
Great. Thank you, Donna. We really appreciate it. Missy would like you to know, as on behalf of all the teachers, that they love your enthusiasm and it's highly motivating to them, and they're excited to work with your tabs and tests. Now, would you mind going back in your slides and just showing for a moment what we're talking about when we're talking about tabs? Because if you are an ESGI newbie, you might not have an ESGI account yet, but what we're talking about are these tests that Donna has made herself and is gifting them to anyone who has an ESGI account. So if you don't have one, you can just sign up for a trial using the promo code, the Smarty Zone, and then you're able to get these tabs copied in one time into your account. Now, once you have them in your account, you can start using them to find where your students are and find where the gaps are. And so she's showing you now phonic progress monitoring. You will get that in your account as well as these other ones. All you have to do is find that handout in the handout section, fill out some information with your username in there, and we will go ahead and copy those tabs in. Now, it'll take us about 5 days to get everyone those tabs, but we want you to have them. We want to gift them to you. That's Donna's gift to you so that you can start helping your students. If you are not able to access that handout, which we've put in the control panel, it will also be in your follow-up email. So make sure you look for your follow-up email. Let's see, everyone's asking questions, where do we find the tabs and so on, and those will come to you automatically in your account as long as you put your username on that form, which is found on the handout. So go ahead and look for that, but also look for your email, which will have that link. So not a lot of questions, Donna, but a lot of support saying that they're so happy that you presented this information today. What if, here's a question, what if you have a different system for leveling students? Can we still use these tests and tabs in ESGI, even if I have a different system?
So I just want to share that the where to start running records remains the same across the thing, but you could absolutely, as I said, get a reading conversion chart, and those are just reading levels converted. So whether it's a Lexile level or a reading recovery level or whatever your school uses, you can definitely in your reading levels, instead of having, whoops, and I think I went too far here, instead of having A, B, C, D like I do, because this particular school uses Fontans and Pinnell's A through Z, you might have a 2.3 to 2.4, which might be a accelerated reader score instead. So while this tab would change, please know that you could still continue to use the where to start, the phonics progress monitoring, which is the biggest tab, goes all the way from just letters all the way to those 6 types of syllables. Keeping in mind, you would never test a student on all of them. You want to stop as soon as they start to fall off. And then of course the sight words, you could modify that tab or you could create your own tab. And that's the gift of ESGI. I mean, many of, as you know, Rochelle, at ESGI, the districts who hire me as their reading consultant, I come in, I model in classrooms, I create the system. And so these purple tabs are district-wide. Everyone in our district where I am working with the teachers, we have these purple tabs. But as many of you know that own ESGI, and if you don't own ESGI, there could be another 10, 20 tabs over on the side. They won't be purple because a district level didn't create them, but instead a single teacher did. I have a teacher keeping track of right now hitting. It's out of control in a TK classroom, and she has decided she's going to progress monitor it and keep track of it. So she created her own tab. We are probably never going to make hitting a purple tab. In fact, I know we're not going to. But if that's something she needs to keep track of, she can do that here. So the purple tabs, they're district-wide in the districts where I work. I'm guessing, Rochelle, because I got a question about this, that they will just be a teacher's personal tab when they've attended this workshop. Is that correct?
That is correct. It will not be purple. When they see it, it'll be gray, just like the other tabs. So yes, they will just see it.
Keep that in mind. You know, I work district-wide when I work with schools. I am a K through as far as they want me to work with struggling readers. And sometimes that's all the way up to 8th grade or into the high school. And so with that knowledge, we are all on the same page within the district. We want to make sure that we have data that we compare across schools, across classrooms. So that's why you see the purple tabs.
Okay, so questions are coming in now like fire, Donna. So we will compile them all. I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions, rapid fire, and then the other ones we will collect them all, everyone, and hopefully Donna will be able to like do a social media post or something just about these questions that you all have. So one of the questions would be, if you are a kindergarten classroom, would you start with the phonics section or would you start with the running records?
We don't start the running records. That's a great question. I'm so thrilled because for every kindergarten teacher that I've worked with in the district that says, you want me to try to, do these words on the first day of school? Absolutely not. We do not start the where to begin running records until January. And that is only if a student has the majority of production of sound. So we would absolutely start in the phonics screener. We also would be looking at that phonemic awareness, that tab that I will eventually add, but all of my tests are there. So if you own ESGI, you can just search for my phonemic awareness tests within the Test Explorer. But I want that to be in a continuum the same way. I want them in order, so you know that, rhyme comes before this, or that deleting a sound is easy, adding a sound is easier than deleting a sound. And so I will eventually get that tab together too, but that's a great question. We don't start running records until after Christmas break. So we are just now getting that data in, and I am thrilled. I have a school right now with the majority of the kids are B readers, which means they are going to blow it out of the water this year. I have no doubt that the majority of our kindergartners are going to leave in this district at a C level, and that is right where we need them to be coming into first grade in the middle of a pandemic.
Fantastic. Okay, this will be our last question because I definitely need to save some time because people want to know if they're going to get prizes or not. So listen, keep on the webinar so that you can hear if you win any prizes. But we had a question that goes along with what you were talking about. Should kinder teachers be teaching sight words in August, September when most of the students don't have letter recognition nor sounds?
I always say, people ask me, how many sight words should I teach a week? I said, I don't know your students, so I can't answer that. I wish that our reading series had not put our teachers into corners feeling like certain kids, all of them have to be ready. You all know if you teach TK, pre-K, K, some are just not ready. The number and the teaching of any kind of high frequency word should be based on what the child is able to do. And I feel that same way about letters. If I am not gaining my letter sounds, and then one teacher said to me, we've introduced 13 and he only knows one, then why'd we keep going with him? Because we need to go back and we need to just start with the ones that he's missing. And so I get that idea of exposure, but if we're throwing everything on the wall and nothing is sticking, we're really just creating frustration. So great question. I think it depends on your kids, and you as teachers know them best. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Thank you so much. Thanks again, Donna.
You're so welcome. And Rochelle, to see so many of them stay until the very end. Thank you, teachers. This is your time. So please go rest, be with family. I hope you have a great year. And if there's anything I can do to help, come on over to my website and leave me a message. Thank you.